Well, I'm afraid this is going to change tone a little bit. Most of us here probably remember where we were when the planes hit the towers on September 11th, 2001. It was before smartphones and massive use of social media, but the news spread quickly. I was packing to go to seminary, and my brother called us to tell us what happened and to turn on the news. And it was the most surreal thing I've ever seen. It seemed like we were watching a movie. When the second plane hit, it felt apocalyptic, like the end of the world. There was a sense of losing control, like you couldn't possibly imagine what was coming next. And when I was thinking about that, I thought of Jeremiah. I looked on the earth, and lo, it was waste and void, and to the heavens, and they had no light. I looked at all the cities were laid in ruins. Jeremiah is known for being the weeping prophet because he's a little depressing. Actually, he's a lot depressing. One commentary described this text in 2 words: total despair. Obviously, this text was not chosen because it fell on the anniversary of September 11th, but it seemed appropriate to have a text referred to as total despair on this day. Within hours of the destruction of the towers, the news started covering stories of heroes, people who had risked their lives to save others. Between the destruction of the towers and the attack on the Pentagon, there were countless stories of heroism. Often it was the first responders, the firefighters, the police officers, the military, but often it was just ordinary people. Now, the news could have just reported the people who died, the suspects who had committed this heinous crime, or the bombs that were being dropped in retaliation. And they did report those things. But they also reported stories of courage and sacrifice, which gave us a little hope for humanity, hope for a God who had not abandoned us. It seems as though each year after 9/11, around the anniversary, we hear new stories of heroism. And I read several over the last few days. The ones that were most compelling to me were the people who kept going back into the towers to look for more people who needed saving. There was one story about a chef who worked on the 96th floor of the South Tower, and he was credited with saving hundreds of lives by bringing people to safety, by organizing people. He too would have made it out, but he stopped to help someone in a wheelchair, and they never found his body. He left 5 children. While I was deeply moved by his bravery and his selflessness, I couldn't help but think of those 5 children. If he had only not stopped to help that one person, he would have still saved hundreds. He would have been a hero. His mother said that he'd been a Marine, and Marines were taught never to leave anyone behind. Our gospel story is much more uplifting than Jeremiah. It's more suitable for kickoff Sunday and Dixieland music. We hear the scribes and the Pharisees who were mad because Jesus was eating with sinners and tax collectors. These people weren't sinners in the sense where we consider all of us sinners. They were sinners in that the whole community knew that they were sinners. We might call them notorious sinners. What upset the Pharisees was that Jesus was not merely talking to these sinners, but he was sharing a meal with them. And according to Jewish law, observant Jews were not supposed to eat with sinners. Jesus was not merely an observant Jew, he was a recognized leader in the Jewish community. And this act was scandalous. In response to the grumbling of the Pharisees, Jesus told 3 parables, 3 stories. We heard the first 2 a couple of minutes ago in the gospel. The first was about a shepherd who left 99 sheep to find the one who got away. And the second was about the woman who lost 1 coin, and while she still had 9, She looked fervently for that one lost coin until she found it. When both the shepherd and the woman found the sheep and the coin, they called their friends and they had a party. They were so happy that they'd found the one thing that they'd lost. Now, being pragmatic, I always wonder about the shepherd who left 99 sheep to find the one who was missing. Now, sheep are not bright animals. And my concern is that by the time he got back to that one little sheep, a bunch more would be missing. And that's assuming that they even found the missing sheep. Yet these stories are not about pragmatic people. They are about people who care deeply about what is lost. Jesus wanted everyone to understand exactly how God is, how Jesus is. He cares so much about each person, every child of God, that he would risk everything to find that one lost person. These stories are not about the one missing sheep or the one missing coin. These stories are about a God who was reckless in his pursuit of his lost children. Sometimes, or often, the people who are the most lost, the most in need of finding, were the very sinners that he was eating with. Days and weeks after the towers fell, rescue crews were still going through the rubble. It was a horrible task because almost everything and everyone that was found was destroyed. Anyone could have gone to ground zero and used Jeremiah's words, "I looked on the earth, and lo, it was waste and void, and the heavens, and they had no light." But these people who were still looking days and weeks after the attack maintained slivers of hope, even if it was finding a dead body, something that would provide closure for a family member. On September 13th, a weary excavator found something that gave him hope. He shared this site with a priest who was on site working with first responders and blessing the remains of those who had died. He said to the priest, "Father, you want to see God's house? Look over there." And a reporter described the scene this way: against seemingly insurmountable odds, a 17-foot crossbeam weighing at least 2 tons was thrust at a vertical angle in the hellish wasteland, just like a cross. In the end of our very depressing reading from Jeremiah, God says, "The whole land shall be desolation, yet I will not make a full end." A lot of people have debated what that line means. And I think that it means that in this hellish wasteland, like ground zero, someone can find a cross and describe it as God's house. It is God saying, "I'm not giving up on you, and you cannot give up on me." For a year, that priest held a service at that cross every Sunday, where sometimes hundreds would gather at God's house. Sometimes the things and the people who are hardest to find become the most precious to us. So God is that chef who kept going back into a collapsing building and died trying to save one more life. God is the shepherd who recklessly searched for one lost sheep because he knows that sheep needs to be found. And God is the excavator who found a crossbeam in the midst of death and chaos and declared it to be God's house. God never gives up on any one of us, even after we have given up on him. Not only that, but God rejoices when just one of us finally hears his call and comes out of our hiding place. It is the 15th anniversary of the worst terrorist attack in the history of our nation. It is not something to rejoice. But we rejoice in the people who sacrifice their time, their health, and sometimes their lives to help others. We rejoice in the people who were found. Today is our kickoff Sunday. We are kicking off Christian formation, which is when our children and our youth and adults come back together to study Jesus. We are bringing our choir back, who come back to officially worship God and help us do that. We welcome people back who have been away a week, a month, a year, maybe longer. We welcome people who have never been here before. We rejoice in each one of you, because whether you know it or not, you are here for a reason. God has found you. And no matter what, no matter how far you wander, God will never stop looking. Amen.